weapons are the most dangerous weapons in the world. So why are there still 13,000 of them in the world, with all nuclear states either increasing or modernising their arsenals? In fact, the UK recently announced it would be increasing its nuclear stockpile by 40%. This while we're living through a pandemic. To put it simply, the government has the wrong priorities and is failing to guarantee our security through stuck-in-the-mud, outdated thinking. This is displayed starkly in the contrast between, on one hand, the government saying they can't afford to pay nurses a decent wage, while announcing, let's spend even more money on nuclear weapons. This development is hugely provocative on the global stage, a further step in a new nuclear arms race which seems to be ongoing. In the midst of this dangerous rhetoric about this need for nuclear weapons, we shouldn't forget that most of the world actually wants to get rid of them. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons entered into force in January of this year, a treaty which makes nuclear weapons illegal in the countries that sign it. And 59% of the UK public want the government, our government, to sign this agreement, according to a poll commissioned by CND this year. We have to make sure this historic agreement generates international momentum towards that global nuclear abolition that we campaign for. We can too often forget that the majority is with us, both internationally and in the UK. Most people know that these weapons of mass destruction are morally wrong. We've seen an upswell in mass visible protest over a range of issues in the past couple of years, highlighting climate change, racism, and just the general right to protest, amongst others. It's becoming evidence that we can only be stronger if we support each other's campaigns. The government's determination to build more nuclear weapons, their inability to make the necessary changes to protect the planet, their attempts at suppressing our voices. It's crucial that as campaigners, we make the links and see the bigger picture. What's clear to me is that the government and preceding ones are hung up on this notion of status, an old school notion, an old school idea that doesn't actually result in true security. As the government's own national security strategies have repeatedly made clear, we're living in a different world now, where the notion of security needs to be redefined. We need to protect the health of society, for example, by preparing for a possible future pandemic, protect against climate change, diffuse tensions with other states through diplomatic work, and yes, by disarming our nuclear weapons. By building an alternative vision of what true security looks like and making the connections with these different issues, we can only be stronger to help us move this dysfunctional world to one free of nuclear weapons. I first started campaigning with CND when sort of the anti-austerity politics were coming to the fore. And for me, it was quite evident even then that there was an attack on so many people's sort of rights to access health, to access disability supports, to access education, to access homes. And that saw sort of civil society coming together because they saw that these problems were all combined. They were all sort of on, because the government is on this huge drive for austerity regardless of the cost. And obviously when you compare that to the fact that a new nuclear weapons system was being planned at a cost of at least 205 billion, you see this question of priorities coming up again and again. And then as sort of the climate change protests have grown in strength in the past decade, again, you see that sort of contrast between we're not willing to invest and protect our planet, but there's always money for weapons. And I think this awareness has only grown, especially in the past 3 or 4 years. And definitely as CND, we're sort of always working with other organisations, be that campaigns against the arms trade, about the wider arms industry, or we've worked with the school strikers who started the protests on climate change. We've got a Climate Not Trident campaign which highlights that. So we supported some of the Black Lives Matters protests. And I think the sort of, as at CND, definitely see our campaign as fitting in with the wider sort of civil society grassroots movements. And I think more and more now, different organisations and everyone is sort of on that same page. The young generation are so inspiring now. When you go to a protest now, be it on climate change, be it on sort of anti-racism, just the voices of the young people are really coming through. And we've actually seen a bit of resurgence in Youth and Students, CND, as well. And they've been making the connections sort of much before us. I mean, I think that generation that's sort of coming of age now, they see this world in this interconnected way that maybe sort of others before them didn't. We had our campaign and we stuck to it, but it's really inspiring to work with a lot of the young people coming through, because this is the world as they see it. It's all connected. There's an existential problem that the future of their planet is not guaranteed. Sort of, they're very aware of that bigger picture and how all the other different campaigns fit in. I've actually spoken at a women's rights, women's march in London specifically on the issue of nuclear weapons, because even then the organisers were sort of very aware that a nuclear war would disproportionately affect women. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily think of straight off the bat, but it's a fact. Women in many parts of the world are less educated, and so they wouldn't know what to do, or they wouldn't be able to protect themselves against an imminent nuclear war. Not that many of us could, but sort of, so you see sort of organisers of these protests now sort of reaching out a lot more and sort of bringing in all the different issues that sort of make up women's rights or climate change, for example. First, let's celebrate our wins. Do you know what I mean? CND has been campaigning since 1958 to get rid of nuclear weapons. The wins don't come very often with a campaign that big. And this is a groundbreaking treaty. It's the first treaty sort of in the world that specifically bans nuclear weapons. We've got the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, but that works towards a world without nuclear weapons. This treaty just bans them outright in the countries that sign it. And at the moment, we're seeing the nuclear states completely refusing to engage with the treaty and even attacking it. But I think where this treaty is useful is it sort of draws that line in the sand, and it makes it very clear that most of the world just don't want nuclear weapons. So 54 states have already fully ratified it out of 190 states in the world, many, many more in the process of doing it. And this can only build sort of this international norm that nuclear weapons are a minority issue, that most of the world don't want them. And you've almost got these pariah states that continue to develop these weapons. So on a macro level, you're seeing that happen, and that nuclear weapons are just being more stigmatized in international circles, like we've seen before with landmines, with chemical weapons and biological weapons, which eventually led to the whole world banning them. But then what it also does is inspire on a micro level. So we've got an initiative called the Nuclear Ban Communities, where we're asking parish councils, villages, towns, cities to adopt motions in support of this treaty. We've already seen Glasgow, Oxford, Manchester support this treaty. And without the international treaty, this wouldn't be happening on a grassroots level. So if the UK government won't sign, well, we'll do it a different way. We'll build up from the grassroots. We'll get towns and cities across the country to give that pressure from below, and then combined with the pressure from above, then one day the treaty will become universal and nuclear weapons will be a thing of the past. I think it's much more encouraging and inspiring for people that have been campaigning for decades, because that it's sort of, they see that there is a point in campaigning. Because if campaigners hadn't started this process back in, I think it was 2014, when the first sort of preceding conference to this treaty happened, if those campaigners hadn't battled for that, then this wouldn't have appeared at the end as a concrete result. I think young people, they're sort of more driven by a very real sort of awareness that their planet is at peril, and they see that through climate change, they see that through a possible nuclear war, because it's more real for them. It's sort of, it is their future, it is their planet. So when I speak to sort of young campaigners and see the work they do, that's what tends to inspire them.